Howdy, Squadra fans, and welcome back to another devotional by me. This week, I wanted to read through Exodus 16 and really go over the story of the Israelites and the manna. Specifically, I wanted to read through and discuss how we should take when the Lord provides for us. So, just to catch you up with what's going on in the story in chapter 16, at this point, the Israelites have been freed from Egypt for about a week. They had witnessed all the plagues in Egypt. They had seen the Red Sea be split open, and they had seen God turn dirty water into clean water and witnessed God provide water after sins. However, the Israelites were getting hungry, and being hungry makes you hangry, and being hangry makes you say things that you probably shouldn't say. In this case, the Israelites were grumbling about how God led us into the desert to let us die. Slavery was so great, guys. Slavery was so cool. Just for reference, this was the generation that survived the mass baby murders. Additionally, they were starting to blame the problem of no food on Moses and Aaron, saying that they were the ones who got us into this mess. They were the ones who were talking to God and leading everybody out. Eventually, God speaks to Moses and says in verse 12, I have heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. Sure enough, the camp was flooded, just completely flooded with quail in the evenings. In the morning, the dew of the ground kind of solidified it into this bread. And when they saw the bread, they're like, what's this? Which roughly translates to the Hebrew word meze. And so calling it manna is sort of like a play on words, I guess. Anyway, after this, they were given instructions on how to take the manna. This is verses 16, 17, and 18. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer, which is about 3 pounds, for each person you have in your tent. The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some gathered little, and when they were measured by the omer, the one who gathered much did not gather too much, and the one who gathered little did not gather too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. A rare instance of the Israelites doing as they're told. I'm going to keep going, 19 and 20. Then Moses said to them, no one is to keep any of it until morning. However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell bad. So Moses was angry with them. All right, so most of the Israelites followed instructions, but some did not. Either they had actually taken more than they cared to eat, or they were worried that there wouldn't be more manna and the next day, and so they were storing it for later. Regardless, their lack of faith resulted in the manna being corrupted. It turned against them. It became smelly and full of maggots. God then tells the Israelites that on the sixth day, so the day before Sabbath, they need to take a little extra and save it overnight so that they could acknowledge the Sabbath and not do the labor of collecting the manna. And also, God could rest from making the manna. We'll continue in verse 24 through 28. So they saved it until morning, as Moses had commanded, and it did not stink this time or get maggots in it. Eat it today, Moses said, because today is the Sabbath to the Lord. You will not find any on the ground today. Nevertheless, some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather it, but they found none. Then the Lord said to Moses, how long will you, referring to all of Israel, refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? So once again, those who took as instructed had what they needed, and those who didn't take enough or too much went hungry for that entire day. Finally, verse 33, so Moses said to Aaron, take a jar and put an omer of manna in it, then place it before the Lord to keep it for generations to come. This jar of manna was in fact kept for generations. It was one of the three things placed into the Ark of the Covenant, which is the dwelling place of God on earth at the time. Okay, so what can we gather from all that for ourselves? I have 4 main points. First, we got to remember that there's no need to grumble or whine or worry about anything that we don't have. The Israelites were just freed from slavery and they witnessed the miracle of God. They were given plenty of water once they asked for it. The Lord was with them and he was providing for them, but they still grumbled about what they didn't have. In the same way, the Lord has freed us from our slavery to sin and to death. And thus far, we are all alive, so God has given us everything we need up until now, at least. An ungrateful heart seeks to satisfy its every desires. Not acknowledging what the Lord has done for you leaves you open to turning away from Him and grumbling. So when we are in need, we don't need to complain. We just need to pray and ask and trust that God will provide for us. Second, when God gives, He gives us the choice of how much we take. The Israelites could have taken as much manna as they wanted. In life, we can choose how to spend our time and our energy, which allows us to choose how much money we make, how much time we save, how much energy we spend. When God provides, we have a choice of how much we want to dedicate to taking. However, God only wants us to take what we need. Saving up money is great, but how much do we absolutely need to be saving? Right? Are we tithing on time? Are we using our resources to bless others? Are we spending too much time thinking on it or working on it? If so, the excess will begin to spoil in some way. It's going to be corrupted. We might lose it all, or we might lose ourselves, or we might lose our relationship with God. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when we kind of make these things, right, take too much and it becomes an idol. Number 3, don't let taking take from your responsibilities to God. The Israelites were planning on taking on the Sabbath, which was a responsibility to God that they didn't acknowledge. In the same way, the Lord calls us to fulfill many different tasks. We're meant to be in service, we're meant to be in fellowship, we're meant to have an active relationship and faith in the Lord. So we have to consider things like, is work causing us to miss church, miss time with our friends and family, interrupt your relationship with God? If so, it might be time to take a step back and really consider if this is where God wants you. Consider seeing where else God can provide for you. Or are you worried that you won't have enough if you take a step back? Are you doubting if God is going to provide for you if you're not putting in that effort for yourself? You might need to recenter yourself and take a leap of faith and don't worry about what you don't have. And don't worry about what the Lord is not providing because He is still going to give you what you need. Number 4, don't forget. Moses and Aaron were called to save some manna so that the future generations would know the story of how God provided. Spoiler alert, but in chapter 17, which is right after this, the Israelites forget about how God provided for them and they start grumbling because they needed water. We don't want to be like that. Every way that the Lord provides to you is a miracle meant to be shared for the glory of God or as proof of His unending mercy. These provisions are also a reminder that God is faithful and will always provide. So don't forget what God is doing in your life and become ungrateful. Because at the end of the day, God is always going to give you what you need. That's all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.